thing.
Excellent.
Biz Live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bizapalooza Chat. Ivana Taylor. I am your host from DIY Marketers. And Bizapalooza Chat is where we make sense of small business marketing strategies, tool tips, and ideas. And today I am joined by Krishna Shastri. Hello, Krishna from Lander App.
Hi, Ivana. Thanks for having me on. I'm super excited to be here. I am the CEO of Lander, but I'm also a digital marketer and got several years of experience in digital marketing. So I'm really super excited to be here and to talk about conversion optimization, landing pages, and anything else under the sun.
That's awesome. And we will be talking about anything else under the sun. I've just sent out a couple tweets, and I encourage you to also, jump in and tweet away. Let's watch the folks in there. Oh my God, Montreal has had 10 inches of snow. Dang. Because I was asking everyone for their weather report.
I got it.
I was asking folks for the weather report, and they've got 10 inches of snow in Montreal. I'm also letting folks know that they can watch us live. Some of them might drop in, some of them may not, and that's all okay. As we go through this process, how about we just kind of warm up to this whole idea? Krishna, tell me, what do we know for sure about landing pages?
What do we know for sure about landing pages? Well, we know that landing pages are web-based entities. We know that they are essentially where a visitor, a company gets a visitor to turn into a customer. And we know that they are a single goal or topic on that landing page, so that people are very focused on what they need to do or what the next steps are. I could go on. Maybe you could be more specific. Let's just go.
Well, maybe we should talk about the evolution of landing pages, because they've really changed. The first question is going to go up here in a little bit, and that's going to ask folks to talk about what is a landing page. But this is like a real conversation, isn't it? Because it's really, really evolved, hasn't it, over the years?
It sure has. So landing pages in the past were essentially your homepage. People used to come to your homepage, and that was back in the 90s, late 90s, and that was essentially your experience. It was just a series of links, a lot of information being thrown at the website with the user, and the goal for them was to say, okay, let's get this person who's visiting us to take an action. But that experience really did not lead to many actions being taken. So there's a thought process that evolved from that, saying, oh, we need to create an entity that's a lot more focused, laser focused really on what we're trying to get them to do. And so that's really where a splash page kind of evolved from the home page. And then from splash pages, we came to landing pages further down the line. And that's really how it kind of evolved.
Yeah, and we're going to be, just getting into all kinds of nitty-gritty details about this. Where do you see, and I asked the trend question a little bit later on, but it's 2017, a whole new year. I know I am looking at my site with fresh new eyes. What are some trends that we should be paying attention to, sort of like in the big picture, as we think about where we're going to take our websites in 2017?
That's a really good question. Things are always changing in the website environment. UX is no longer like a separate thought process from actually developing something or a website. So user experience needs to be thought of as a solution rather than a problem. You need to think about it while developing solutions along with creating new kind of websites, new landing pages. That's one thing. Another thing that I think of is being able to drive that user into the next steps. Now, this is something that we've done a lot of times with just one idea, which is, okay, let me get a lead. Let me get that lead to take an action, and we'll tell them what to do. But now more complex information, like a very complex, say, solution on a tech solution, assumingly, that would be basically kind of diversified, and then you create different boxes to explain it, make it really simplified. That's one way of doing it. Another thing that was really interesting is I've noticed that testimonials are no longer working in a separate section. If you have a testimonial, for example, in as a part of your copy rather than towards the bottom of the page, people take more note and actually spend time, see it, and they use that as a means of driving their decision making. You know, there are a lot of trends out there. I feel like it really depends on the goal that you have and what you're trying to do. So ideally, landing pages are becoming shorter rather than longer. The shorter they are, the more succinct they are, the more impact they have for the user. Whereas if you're trying to put in reams and reams of information, it's almost like you're creating a home page in of itself.
Right,
So I think I'll stop there right now.
So shorter and shorter. I love it. And more focused.
Mm-hmm.
And what else here that I wanted to ask? So we're still talking about what they are and what they're not. And I think a question a little bit further down is the difference between a landing page and a home page. You know, I guess my point is I just see so many hybrid things now, right? Because the technology is such that now you could, I think Neil Patel does this thing where you get like a gateway page, but then it's not forced. You can kind of go past the gateway page to see the content, right? And then there would be like this above the fold sort of a landing pagey kind of thing. And then you get the content, right? So there's like lots of these hybrid things going on. How do you know, like, what is the difference between like what should be on your homepage, what should be on the landing page? I know we're digging deep all over the place, but this is the beauty of being on video.
It is, isn't it? You know, what should be on a homepage? Let's start with that. So a homepage is really where a company, a brand, or whoever is really setting up this website is able to talk about what it is that they do, who they are, products, contact information, navigational links to other parts of their outward-facing web interfaces are really the things that you should really have on a homepage. So it's really all about your branding. It's about being able to interact with users in a way that might be either socially induced or otherwise it might just be, you know, organic traffic. And the point of a homepage is it's like an overarching view of how your users get to know what it is that you do. However, there's also been a trend in that where companies are realizing, yeah, okay, we get a lot of traffic to our home page, but shouldn't we maybe make it more like a landing page? And that's becoming sort of a solution for people who have a single product or a single service where they actually make the landing page their home page. Now, that kind of works if you're driving, you know, paid search traffic, or you get a lot of SEO traffic to your homepage, then it really makes sense to make that into a hybrid landing page. Like you were saying with Neil Patel, yeah, Neil's at the forefront of what's happening in terms of growth hacking and conversion optimization. The guy really knows his stuff, right? So having opt-ins and above the fold content that actually turns into converting visitors is really the goal. Why waste that traffic going to your homepage? So I think I kind of give you a mix of answers, but let me talk about landing pages specifically versus a homepage. A homepage gives you an overarching view about the company, product, and what have you. A landing page is really about the service that you're selling, about the product that you have. And it's only one product. If you have, like, say, 10 products in an e-commerce company, right? You don't want to inundate all the user with all those products. You really want to have them talk about, or you want them to see that you're capable of having them hone in on it, and then B, getting them to buy it. And to make the user buy a product is not so easy because they have so many options and there's so many places that they can do it from. So you need to put in as much information or as little information as you need or as you can in order to get the person to make a purchase. So the copy length is becoming shorter. The headlines in a landing page need to be very much to the point. No artsy fartsy stuff. Nothing with much flair. Really, just say, hey, buy this product, buy these shoes. This is it's a call to action, and it gets them to move. And if you offer a component of timeliness, saying get this now or it'll be sold out, that kind of gives them a reason to really take an action. So landing pages are the bread and butter of a website that's in the process or business of making money off the web. And it's imperative for anyone who's running any marketing campaign to have a landing page that works with each of those marketing campaigns. So for example, if you're doing, let's say you're doing Facebook ads, right? So Facebook ads allow you to drive traffic to your website. And when you're driving traffic to your website, you need to send them to a landing page rather than your homepage. Why? Well, that landing page can be along the theme of your ads that you're driving in your Facebook ads. And so there's also a component for both Facebook ads as well as paid search ads like Bing ads or Google AdWords, where it's called quality score. Quality score is a measure, or it's a measure of relevance between your copy, your keywords, your targeting, your landing page, and your messaging. And basically, the closer that all of these elements are aligned to one another, the higher your quality score, which then reduces your cost per click. So overall, your cost per acquisition tends to become lower when you start getting all these things aligned. And another component of a landing page is being able to change the URL to match, say, that keyword. So let's say you're trying to sell red shoes on Google AdWords, right? It's an easy example to give. And so your keyword is red shoes or red Nike shoes or red Reeboks or whatever they are. And then your headline would be buy red Nike shoes now, or buy red sneakers now, or whatever. So that gives a call to action and it induces a sense of urgency. And then obviously within the copy, you have like a couple other lines, description lines, that you can add in more details about buying these shoes. And then your visual URL also needs to indicate that this keyword is really important so that the person is going to click on it. Now, I'm getting into a lot of digital marketing techniques, but if you bear with me and if you understand what I'm talking about, basically, once you drive traffic from that headline and that ad into your landing page needs to look exactly like what that ad copy is saying, only you need to expand on it. Obviously, ad copy only is really compressed, whereas a landing page is where you could explode that copy and talk about it a little bit more. So landing page is really good for social media, paid social media ads, for paid AdWords and Bing ads. They're really good for SEO landing pages. SEO is like the organic traffic where you aren't paying for it and where you kind of just drive people to the links from either your homepage or directly from the Google search engine results page. What else are they good? They're really like anything forward facing and anything where you want someone to take an action is where a landing page is at. So back to you, Ivana.
That's really good. So like in summary, basically what you're saying is that home pages are sort of like overarching what is your brand about. So they're more general in scope, whereas landing pages way more specific. So anytime you want to drive specific action, you want to have good SEO for a certain result, anytime you want any of these things, that is the job of a landing page.
Absolutely.
I hope I got that right.
You got it.
let's see. So now we've got, well, this gives us right back to where we want to be in terms of the questions. When we're dealing with goals, what kinds of goals is your landing page there to fulfill on?
Yeah, so goals are a really interesting question because not all companies, services, and websites are created equal, and then not all digital marketers are created equal in the sense that you can essentially choose a traffic limit as a goal, or the number of people who hit your traffic. So that's impressions. You can choose for conversions, which is the ideal thing you want to do with the landing page. But conversions can be measured in so many different ways. So if I'm in the business of being a sales rep, right, my goal would be to really drive the number of interactions from leads, and I want those leads to really sign up so I can call them immediately thereafter and start making a sale with them. So that one type of goal is getting a form fill. So that's a part of it.
Wow, that's a goal.
Yeah, that's a form fill. And if you're talking about e-commerce, right, you can have them clicking through to the payment page. That's a goal. If you're doing something like B2B marketing, lead generation is still a part of it, but another part of it is white paper downloads. So you can talk about maybe a white paper, but in order to get that white paper, the person needs to sign up for something or give them some information. So it's a transaction, but it's not really money changing hands, but it is your contact info. So that's another way people enforce a goal, which is to say, okay, you sign up for this, but I'll give you something in return. And that's usually like a PDF download or a link to something to download from. Still a lead form kind of thing, but really in a case like this, you're going for the absolute minimum. You're going for their first and last name and their email address, no more information necessary, because this is really more like a longer tail marketing initiative rather than exclusively looking for someone to convert into a customer immediately. What else do you have? So there's video views. That's another question, or another thing that a lot of people like to do. Video is huge. Audio, audio listens in the same way. I think video just tends to be a little bit more interactive. People have very short attention spans. So if you can keep a video for under 5 minutes and you just kind of gauge how these people are doing, you can potentially use that as a method of tracking. Another one that's really important, Ivana, is that when visitors are visiting a landing page and you have perhaps say you have a team that's ready to answer these phone calls immediately. So click to call is really important too, and that's something to measure, especially in a mobile device and a mobile landing page. It's really important that if you have someone, an answering service, that they be able to call you and speak with your sales force immediately. So clicking to call is basically the landing page converting that click into call this number right now on their mobile device. What else is there? I'm pretty sure I'm blanking right now, but there are a few others.
Well, I think what a lot of folks might really want to hear, let's say, is I'm kind of curious how many people are using landing page and how they're using landing pages. I am still doing the top of the fold landing page, keeping it kind of simple. It's a little bit about the message. It's a little bit about a grabber. I'm not being very intentional about it. And I think that, that's a criticism I have of myself. And I think that as the next question that's going to come up is, are landing pages appropriate for every marketing goal? When should you not use a landing page? I think, like I said, I think people really struggle, right, with the whole idea. We see certain people using them well, and then I see people not using them at all. I have clients who ask me tons of questions, maybe even understanding the role that a landing page has in terms of the funnel, right? Like I like to think of things as buckets, right? So if you offer a particular product, you would have a landing page on that specific product, or maybe that or a particular quote unquote problem that you solve. You might have a landing page on that problem because it's putting people into buckets.
Yep.
Right. So, but I'm seeing landing pages everywhere. And that made me ask the question, is there a time to not use one?
Absolutely. There are actually a few times when you shouldn't use one. One particular case in point is when you have a branding site. When you're trying to do branding, it makes more sense for brand marketing, I should say. So brand marketing is a little different from customer acquisition in the digital marketing parlance, which is to say, you want your word to get out there, and you don't necessarily want them to take an action to become either a power user. You want to spread the word. And so branding tends to be a great example, and probably one of the few examples I can think of where you don't need a landing page, because that really becomes a way for people to learn more about you and share the word and explore more about your brand through a homepage. So a landing page kind of doesn't let you do that, right?
Yeah, so like a landing page is almost, it definitely crosses the line into sales. And I could imagine that folks are, how do I say this, right? I think that's a problem, right? A lot of times in these chats, and you and I we've been to enough of these things where we know that we all like to talk about engagement and talk about being authentic and talk about all these different things. And sometimes a landing page is sort of pushing that relationship a little bit, whereas having a branded message allows people the chance to get to know you.
Yeah, exactly. That's like one of the key components. They don't get the chance to know you because what you're trying to do with a landing page is you're trying to remove any instance of navigational links to other parts of your website. You just want them to get through the flow. So you're absolutely right on that, Ivana.
I'm looking at some of the comments here. Now, I don't know why this is happening, but I see Pierre's comments, but I see them in my mentions and not so much on the chat. And I see Bizzapalooza chat. He's doing it right. I don't know why it ain't showing up.
I see him.
Do you see him? Good. Mm-hmm. Believe you will have more success with millennial niche compared to the baby boomers, depending on your audience. Our landing page is appropriate for every marketing goal. Why should you never use them? That was his response to that.
Mm-hmm. That's a little different. He's looking at it from a segmented user base, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I really, now Jason Michael said, he made an original comment, and he and I are going back and forth. The landing page is there to get your customer addicted, and you're the dealer. And I'm like, that's a little scary.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd really call ourselves, yeah, that's an interesting analogy. I wouldn't necessarily agree with the addiction component of it, because I think
I don't know that it gets you. I don't know that I understand. See, I tend to view that more as a branding thing. Like, I want people to have an emotional connection to my brand and keep coming back for more. Right. I like what Michael Roach says. Home pages are less focused, less direct than landing pages. Users are expected to explore when viewing a home page. And I've actually had this experience, when I was originally creating my site. Now, again, this was before all the fancy schmancy drop down Neil Patel things, right? But one of the things I noticed was that when I did not have on my homepage, when I only had a single opt-in, that did nothing. That was terrible. It gave people nothing. Whereas once I expanded and gave them a broader area to explore, I felt that kept, that got people deeper into the site. It got people, so I think that goes to prove that point. I think on a homepage, you absolutely have to give people a flavor for the brand.
Ivana, I lost you for
I know, I
a
lost you
second.
too. But let's move
Okay.
on. So we're talking about, you talked a little bit about SEO benefits, right? I'd love to understand that a little bit more.
Yeah.
So talk about, like, let's say, for example, if you have certain keywords or certain products like basement waterproofing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dog training, what is that's the standard SEO example, right? So if you
Sure.
have something very specific, talk about what is the transition from your SEO targeted keyword phrases, like, and move us into the landing page conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way SEO works, and I assume that our audience understands it, but just for those who don't, SEO is search engine optimization, which uh, allows you, the website owner, to create pages that drive value to users. And how do you drive value? You drive value by having a component on a website kind of resonate with the search term you're using on Google or Yahoo or Bing or whatever, right? So how the search engines work is you enter a query. The query is then is looked at through an index, which they basically index your site from to see whether or not you have content that might be relevant. And so how a homepage and landing page kind of cater to an SEO environment is that a homepage tends to have a lot of keywords kind of joined and matched together, and might have a lot more cross keyword linking. Whereas in a landing page, you essentially have that one goal, that basically a one keyword mentality, essentially. So you're saying dog training, right? So if I'm looking for a dog trainer, and I want to look for a dog trainer, say in a local place. I live in Berkeley, California, so I'm looking for a dog trainer here in Berkeley. And if you, as someone who's created a website, have created a landing page where you say, um, book an appointment now with a dog trainer in Berkeley, California, that is going to be a lot more relevant than dog trainers in California, right? So the relevancy is kind of where a landing page tends to shine. And it allows you as a company or website to turn up higher in the search results on making the assumption that you've actually put thought into whether or not this content is relevant to your business and how people are searching for things. And you can do a lot of things to figure out how people are searching. And there's something called Google Search Console, which I really love to use. And if you basically index your site with Search Console, it gives you, it actually lets you see how people are searching and what those searches, how often those searches turn into clicks on your website. So that's one way to figure out.
So I have a question from the peanut gallery. On Twitter, Jason Michael wants to know, do you, because I think I don't want you to leave this topic because this is relevant. Do you want your SEO to be different on your landing page than on your home page?
The answer really depends, right? If you have one location, let's talk about geolocation, for example, because that really makes a lot of sense. If you are not McDonald's, but you are Joe Schmo, who's also selling fries and burgers, right? And so in a situation like that, you'd be very much focused on having a home page and a landing page that are very similarly assigned or work out, because at the end of the day, you only have one location. But if you have multiple locations, then it makes more sense for your landing pages to have very different content, whereas your home page only has one. So in that example, from a geolocation perspective, if you have multiple locations, then it makes more sense to have separate landing pages. And that kind of works for like the number of products you have or the kinds of services that you are offering. Again, if it's a single product, single service, single location, in those cases, I would urge you to have a landing page that's very similar to a home page, but it won't really do much for you. The only thing that will really work for you is to kind of create different kinds of copy revolving around maybe the segmentations of who your visitors are, or trying to understand your user profile. And so I think the answer really is no. You really shouldn't.
The short answer is no.
Yeah.
No, I gotcha. Oh, and Jason said, thanks for the great answer. Never thought about location-based SEO. Well, there you go. All right, so let's talk about A/B testing. This topic overall scares the pants off me, and that's an ugly thing.
Why?
I mean, I know that testing is necessary. We all know that testing is necessary. And I think that I have not, I think you had, when you had a question on the question, and my answer was, I don't know what it is. I mean, I know what it is, but it just lands as very, very confusing and overwhelming and something that I cannot manage or follow or do anything about. And it's got to be easier than that.
It is. It's A/B testing was something that was enabled on Google Analytics well before my tool came into form. And basically, the idea is you create two unique variants, which are very similar in the sense that there's only one change per variant landing page. And then you kind of assign traffic, somewhat randomized, but the same number of visitors to both to gauge which one is doing better. So which version is doing better. And that's really what an A/B test is. It's all about driving statistical significance across the board and making sure that the decision that your users are taking is something that will essentially propagate through the rest of your visitors over time. It's not really hard, but it is harder to do without a dedicated landing page tool, to be quite honest. It's really, how do you drive that traffic equally across both? It's not necessarily very easy to do, but nor is it really like impossible.
Especially if you don't have a lot of traffic, it could take forever.
Yes.
To get that kind of traffic to each page. And I think a lot of folks struggle with the fact that there are many, many things that can and should be changed on any given landing page. I mean, headlines, subheads, buttons, forms, images. I mean, it is like, where do you begin?
Yeah, it's a good question. You start at the top, really. You start at the top, and that's the headline. I think that's really where about 80% of conversions really start or end, because that's the first thing a user sees. And then you can test images around there too. The point of, I want to backtrack a little bit. Yes, traffic, the number of visitors you get is really also important. If you're getting 500 visitors a month, you're going to have to wait 10 months before you even have like a realistically statistical significant number of visitors who turn into making that hypothesis come true, essentially. So having a decent amount of traffic is important. It's not just time, right? It's not 2 weeks and then 10 visitors. Or as Neil put it, 100 conversions is a good baseline to understand whether or not something's working. So 100 conversions is basically, if we're talking at 2% conversion rate, we're talking about 20,000 visitors, right? And so these are Fairly large numbers, and
especially for a small business owner. And if you're in a
oh,
niche business, you're not going to get that kind of traffic to your site.
no, you're
And I
not
think,
going to get that. Yeah,
and I think, the next question is going to be coming up here in about 30 seconds is what keeps people from doing A/B testing. So I think we've determined overwhelm, right? I would say typically, I think a lot of small business owners don't know that there are tools and apps that help them do that. Maybe the last thing they saw was Unbounce from like 8 years ago. And yeah, that was scary back then. But they've gotten a lot easier. And there's been a lot more new technology. So we've got overwhelmed, not knowing where to begin, you said at the top. We've got what was the other thing? Technically challenged, right?
Yeah.
And the need to get more traffic. Maybe they think I can't get enough traffic. So talk a little bit about what stops people and maybe some of the advancements in the tools that are out there right now that should help.
Absolutely. Sure thing. So one of the things that is really important for people to realize is that so you think about traffic, you think about overall traffic to your site, but if you start assigning landing pages to a particular marketing campaign that you're running, say email campaign that you might be running, or traffic coming through social media, which is to say you assign a landing page specifically to a Facebook page that's going to drive traffic exclusively to this landing page, then you can kind of start testing within a range as to whether or not these users from this source point are actually resonating with your content. So that's like one way of looking at it. And I just saw a question from Jason. Just 1 second.
Yeah.
For small businesses, does Lander app assist with A/B? Absolutely. So A/B testing is part and parcel of our product. It's not something you add on. We figured it's really important for everybody to have the opportunity to A/B test. And essentially, Jason, you don't need our help. It's really easy to do. All you do is you create a landing page, and then you create a variation, and then you change one element, only one element, and then you call that a B version. Then you see what happens, what makes people tick, and that's really how it works.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So tools and apps make it really easy. So let's talk a little bit about. So let's pretend you're a small business and you have this like WordPress website, right? Mm-hmm. And you're like barely keeping up with blog posts and like product pages and blah blah blah. And now you're going to what's the difference between, that's coming up, isn't it? That's another question coming up. What keeps people from doing A/B testing? What should you be testing? We talked a little bit about that. We talked about a bunch of things. I want to get into, what's the difference between doing it on your own WordPress site and then using a third-party platform? I mean, don't you lose SEO? How do third-party platforms work?
Absolutely. That's I kind of lost a bit of the question due to lag, but the way I understood it is how do third-party web builders work with your current website? Is that the question?
Perfect. Much shorter and better. Yes.
Okay. So how it works is you, as a user, are essentially you need to create your own content on these sites. We host them rather than you hosting them. So if you have a WordPress site, right, all you do is create a custom domain with us, and that custom domain is essentially your example site.com, but it's pointing to us, right? So the SEO value that comes from creating this custom domain with us is driven back to you. That's one element. The other element is you need to create a point to link from your site, or if you're driving, say, Facebook traffic or Google AdWords traffic, you essentially run that traffic directly into this landing page. But because the domain names are aligned, Google says, okay, this is driving value. So this link juice, as we call it in SEO parlance, is driven back to your website, and that's kind of how it works.
So what? So if I had, so if you have an account with a landing page builder, when you create a landing page, it should be, so what would there would be like, what, yourproduct.com, or would it be your website.com? So it would be like DIYmarketers.com?
It would be the promo dot website.com. Does that make sense?
Promo dot webs. Oh, got it. Right. So you would create subdomains.
Correct. And then you can do subfolders after you create the subdomain.
Oh my God, this is like where this is like, you know, and I think this is the crux of why people don't do it. Right?
We try and make it really easy for people to do it. A lot of people use our standard domain, which is mylanderpages.com, and that tends to be good for our SEO, but not really good for theirs.
Right,
they don't necessarily understand it. So I've been trying to make it easier for people who are creating these landing pages to understand that you need to really like get your own domain in order to pass all this marketing dollars and effort that you're putting back into your website. You're right, it's not the easiest item to understand, and it's actually one of the biggest bugbears that people have, because they really think that they need an IT or coding team to do it, but all you really need is being able to access your CNAME and changing the point to it. Now, I realize it sounds like geek talk, but it isn't hard. It really isn't hard. Thanks, Jason. It does seem daunting, but it isn't.
Yeah, it is. It can be really, really daunting, and you know, that's what makes it tough. I think it sounds to me like there's many, many steps in the process that you have to kind of prepare yourself for, right? Like Eva was saying, Eva Ignatovic, who runs our Bizapalooza account during the chats, she says, weird, right? Trying to save time, yet ineffective campaigns waste time and money. Because there was the whole, how does testing landing pages save you time and money? A/B testing save you time and money. And that is that, you know, you get to focus and such. And then we talked about what are the best items to test. You said you should definitely do your headline, right? One element at a time. So you're saying testing headlines is the best place to start. That's like 80%. That's your 80-20, huh?
Absolutely. The rest of it's the 20, because once you change your headline and you find a call to action that really works. By the way, the calls to action used to be like, oh, get this now, or you're running out of time, but more like people are now changing to something less urgent and more buy this now. Literally, like buy this now, or download this free copy of the white paper right now. And what's happening is people have been developing blindness to flashy copy, and if all you do is if you create something that resonates with the image, then the user is more likely to take action. So things have become more simplified. And another like wrench that Google's thrown into the mix is they've said, look, guys, you're creating mobile landing pages that are that have less content and copy than your desktop ones, but more people are using mobile now to search for things, and we want you to change it. And this is for everybody who wants to be ranking highly on Google. And they've essentially said, if you create a landing experience that is less that has less content or less richness than your desktop, you're going to get dinged. So the new thing is really making sure that the landing page experience on your mobile site, and even your website, which is directed to mobile users, needs to be very much aligned with what's on your desktop. So in the past, we used to say, you know, you should really offer as little information as possible on the mobile site, because people don't have enough time or wherewithal to read through all of this. But in fact, I think what's happening is that thought process is now going back to where it's a desktop experience, rather than you know, adding or inundating people with information on the desktop side. They're essentially now seeing what might look like a mobile experience, but just a little bit more rich on a desktop site. So that's like a big challenge for a lot of people, because a mobile device is just like this big, right, versus our desktop site. And so how do you create a UX user experience, and how do you get the user to take action by offering nearly as much information on your desktop. So that's like a big challenge right now for a lot of people.
Oh, that really is. And there you go. You speak right into the A/B testing thing. So we touched a little bit on this. How long should you run an A/B test? And I ran across that same article with Patel that talked about, 100 conversions or something. I was like, yeah, right. It would take me probably 6 months.
Right. Absolutely. And so that's the thing. I really say, you know, if you start at a baseline of say 5,000 visitors, right? It's still a lot for SMBs, and especially the really small businesses. But if you're doing anything like Google AdWords, or if you're doing anything like social ads, which tend to be a little cheaper, and you should be doing social ads, by the way, you should always be testing it. You will see returns on your traffic, but you need to make sure you're running these campaigns through a landing page. Otherwise, you will never know what's working for you. And that's really the importance and the crux of where it all starts. Is a lot of small businesses use their home page as their landing page, and then they don't really know how to kind of move on from there. So when they start with a landing page, they're starting from ground zero again. So you got to really start with landing pages right from the get-go.
And Jason is saying, how do responsive sites play into that? And I think he was talking about this idea of balance that you were talking about.
Yeah, I was actually going to tweet back, but I think I'll just answer here. So responsive sites actually work in your favor with regards to the Google search results. I think it's still a problem because the responsiveness is essentially reshuffling what you have on your desktop page. So your mobile experience might be overly complicated. And so as a thought process, maybe kind of coming to a middle ground where you have a little bit more information than you're normally used to on a mobile site, and keeping that same level of information on your desktop kind of works as a better result, rather than making your desktop experience nearly as sparse as your mobile experience. Hope that helps answer.
Agreed. I think one of the things that it's annoying to me is they've gotten into this hamburger menu, the little 3 lines. While I am all about the hamburger menu on a mobile device, like, I've learned that there are more goodies back there. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. Whereas where I don't like to see it is when it's a hamburger menu on a big giant desktop and there's no content there. That's Absolutely. A problem. That is a problem, you know, and I think that that's something we should definitely, I think, as an experience. And the other thought I had, and I'd love your thoughts on this, the other thought I had was, as a process, does it make sense to perhaps, in your thinking, kind of start with the landing page concept, meaning like the landing page really gets you focused on the call to action, get you focused on the SEO, like get you focused on the most important things. Like, what is the fewest amount of content that gives you the most amount of information, right? And then for the desktop experience, you can possibly maybe go from there to expand that. I don't know.
Yeah, you know, the monkey wrench is really that Google says you can't have 2 different experiences. They need to be both the same. So that's really the bugbear for a lot of people. And so responsiveness is one way to address that. But I think having anything more than like a 10% difference between your mobile and desktop experience will become a ding on you, if that makes sense.
Got it. Ooh, I'm not going to have.
Have you? How's your site? Is it vastly different for the mobile site, or is it just?
No, my site is responsive.
Okay.
So it does the shuffle, and I've purposely, I mean, it's part of my brand to keep it simple, and I purposely kept it simple. And so I am just like a firm believer that like the biggest thing you see is Marketing Simplified. So you already know, like you see DIY marketers, you see Marketing Simplified, then you see like the little sub thing. Then there's like images, and then there's sort of, then I've got a credibility builder, and then I've got like 3 blog posts. That's it. So I've limited, instead of having lots, I just give you a flavor for what's most recent. Then I give you another. So I have one opt-in at the top. I got one opt-in at the bottom. So if you're looking at blog posts, you can opt in. If you're looking at the top, you can opt in. And that's just the way it's been for a few years. I personally will tell you, and I'm not ashamed to admit it, that I am completely flummoxed and confused by the entire keyword phrases, pages, blah, blah, blah. That entire thing has me completely confused. And so I quickly just stick my head in the sand about it and go, this is what I got.
Okay.
Not good, but you know what? I'm willing to bet that I am speaking what a lot of small business owners are doing. And the really scary thing is, like, I'm supposed to know better.
And you're freely admitting that you don't. I think it's a problem. I think it's a problem for a lot of businesses, and I think it needs to be explained with a little bit more clarity. And honestly, I think a step-by-step might be the best way to do it, but it requires time, and it requires the willingness to learn. I mean, if you can hire somebody else, go ahead, do that. But honestly, this is work that you could do yourself. And you shouldn't be hiring people to do this for you. You should really be hiring them to do something that you can't do, right? Save your money for things that really matter rather than having them do your basic SEO. That basic SEO is something you can do on WordPress. It's something you can figure out very easily on how to improve your site. And the problem with SEO is you don't see your results immediately, right? You see them over time. You see them 6 months down the line or a year down the line. And yeah, it requires you to really know what it is, and it requires you to do some research. But anyone who has a basic web presence needs to know their SEO. I really think so.
Well, you've got me thinking about a really awesome tip, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. So I work with a couple clients who have actually like done some web, let's say they have a beautiful site that's actually not functioning at all.
Okay.
Right. It's the bones are beautiful and the structure is fine and blah, blah, blah. Messaging, all wrong. Right.
Okay.
Also had issues with SEO and so on and so forth. So here was my thought. My thought was, before we go out, redesigning, not just redesigning, but I mean like changing copy and all that other kind of stuff, wouldn't it be a great idea to do this thing that you were talking about? Before you change any copy on your website, you can sort of do a test using landing pages. And that's what better way to go is than if you have, you want to drive traffic to a particular product. Let's say you're a software company and you want to do demos. Like that's your top of the funnel, right?
Yeah.
You can create a landing page or a couple and test and actually start making progress in that area without waiting for like, what are we going to put on the homepage?
Exactly. And that's really how I would look at any form of new content that I'd be putting on a site. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there, where marketers, I'm not very different from the regular Joe. I was the regular Joe maybe 10 years ago. I didn't know much about anything. I just had a little bit of common sense, and I kind of read a lot of information. But what you're saying is actually very much what you can and should be doing with landing pages. You shouldn't really be looking at it as only as a goal to convert somebody, but you should be looking at it as to how people interact with your content. And absolutely, that should be like a blog post for you right there, Ivana.
Right? No, it was so funny. I mean, it seems obvious, I know. But like I said, I keep having conversations with folks and they're like, oh, we got to do something with our website, but we don't know where to begin and And I'm like, and Krishna, I want to show people quick wins.
Yeah.
And when you start talking website design,
that's not a quick win.
That is not a quick win, right?
No,
that is like a long process. And I was like, but using a landing page builder is a really awesome way to get a quick win.
Absolutely. Now, let me ask you this, since you are the voice of the small business, if you will. What kind of marketing do small businesses or new small businesses do in order to drive traffic and try and understand whether or not their messaging is on point, or whether or not this product is on point? Like how do most users start other than SEO?
How do most users start? They don't.
They don't.
They don't. I mean, and the reason they don't start is because they haven't really thought through some of the basics, right? Like, who is your ideal customer? What's important to them when they're buying what you're selling? You know, these are all things that ultimately impact search terms.
Absolutely. And that's
right?
what
These are all things, they require time, they require reflection, they require, I see so many business owners caught up in the, they're caught up in their product or service and not caught up on the outcome that their customer is looking for, right? So your product and service is a landing page app. So my outcome is not necessarily a landing page. My outcome could be more traffic, more conversions. You know, my outcome could be making more money. But back to this point of like, you need to parse out what's stopping people, or what outcome do they want, and how does your product get them there?
Yeah.
So you could decide, you know, amongst the many different landing page builders, you know, who are talking about landing pages, or are talking about having pre-designed templates, or like whatever the features are that they talk about, you could decide to say, well, our landing page builder, you know, maybe has you going from like 0 to, you know, registrations or whatever, opt-ins or whatever, in like, you know, 3 hours. You sit down from you sit down from noon to 3 and you will be up and running. Like, so that could be an outcome that somebody wants. I'm not doing it because I think it's going to take me 5 weeks. I don't have 5 weeks for this.
Yeah. And you know, one of the reasons why people come to our product is simply because it's easier to use than the other guys. And it's easier to use because we purposely made it a what you see is what you get kind of editor, where you drag and drop things and you just simply, you kind of visualize what you want and then you make it happen. And it's still hard for some people, believe it or not, because they look at all these options and they're like, oh, this is like Photoshop, which I don't know anything about, therefore I can't do it. All you need is an open mind and the ability to play with something to learn how it works. And I think you bring up a good point where people should be using landing pages to figure out their segmentation, to figure out their user profiles. And that's really how we like to think about landing pages. It's not just a conversion page. It's really about getting to know what your product stands for and getting to know how your product stands with your customers. And so I think in the long term, I think landing pages are really going to move towards kind of like a split, one which is very conversion focused and the other towards surveys almost, you know. And that's really like surveying your users without actually giving them a survey. And they don't know it, but that's what you're doing, right? So that's the beauty of content, and that's the beauty of being able to create simple but easy to use pages with us.
I think that is very, very well put. And so let's see if there's any questions or comments. We're talking about platforms. We're talking about, I'm going to look and see if there's any questions. I don't see any questions that we have. Oh, I got Mike Godelman says Thrive Themes. I use Thrive Themes. Yep. I love them. And why is he saying, think I've missed something?
Maybe he hasn't used them yet.
No. I use Thrive Themes to create my landing pages. I actually have the option. I have both OptimizePress and I have Thrive. But remember, I'm not doing testing.
Yep.
And I think I could do testing. I think they have these options, but once again, it's like, I expect that it would take me at least 20 hours of focused thought to now understand, you know, there's a difference between creating these, going through the process of creating something, because like, hello, you can put up a website in under 10 minutes, but can you write the copy?
Exactly. Copy takes forever. Now, it can take forever, or another way to do it is to start with a very brief outline, and essentially start writing content within that outline. And you know, you really shouldn't be focusing on pages and pages. You should really be focusing on content above and below one page fold per page. So then once you start planning your project out in that manner, you don't really waste so much time trying to put in tons of content. And over time, you can change that, right? That's the beauty of a website. It's not going to be static throughout its entire lifetime.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Well, I know that we could talk about this for hours and hours, but our time is swiftly passing, and all you folks have like spent yet another hour digging down deep into the ins and outs. Today, we were talking landing pages for 2017. Thank you, Krishna Shastri from Lander App, for being here.
Thank you for having me. I really loved it, and hopefully I'll be back soon.
Excellent.
Merry